Before I begin, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mario Zepeda, and I'm a sophomore at Denison University. My hometown is in Boston, and sometimes I wonder why I'm so far away from home, or why I'm in Ohio, and more specifically, Granville, Ohio. But let me begin my story. So, I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, to two immigrant parents. Both of my parents are from Guatemala, which is a country in Central America. And growing up, I've always had the struggle of am I an American because I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States, or am I Guatemalan since my parents are Guatemalan? So that should make me Guatemalan, shouldn't it? I guess that's the question I've been asking myself. Well, I asked myself through much of my young childhood, going back to visit family in Guatemala and playing with my cousins in Guatemala. They've always said chapin, which is a word that's used or referred to people who live in Guatemala, who are Guatemalan, and that bothered me because I always I always felt that I represented my Guatemalan heritage everywhere I went, and it's something I just, like I said, I struggled with because I'd be back home in Boston, and I'm like, I'm an American, and others would be like, no, you're Guatemalan, you can't represent us, and then it's like, then who am I? And I know this is a question that has been asked in life a lot. Who actually are you? And this whole identity crisis. But with me in specific, I feel like I'm outcast at times. I feel like that I can't relate to both cultures, even though I represent both cultures. So instead of having agency over both of them, I feel like I have absolutely none. You think to yourself, it's like, what does it what does it take to be an American? And then what does it take to be Guatemalan? There are honestly two questions that I don't think can be answered because it's a lot. It means different. There's different definitions for different people. Everyone views it differently, so why should there be one universal
My
answer?
name is Katie Weiss, and I just have a couple questions for you, Mario.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'd like to know, in one point of your monologue, you talk about, or you start to stumble upon the way you say Guatemala. You start to say Guatemala, which is how you would say it in Spanish. But then you correct yourself and you say Guatemala with the G. And I think it's interesting because are you trying to do that on purpose because you know this is an English speaking project? Or are you subconsciously doing that because you're trying to fit into American society?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. I'm glad you noticed it, but to be honest with you, it was just automatic. I really didn't do it on purpose. I really didn't think twice of it. It was just maybe secondhand to me. And sometimes I just don't know whether to say the Spanish pronunciation of the country or the English pronunciation. But I didn't think it mattered at a point. But sometimes I do feel like things that are said in Spanish should be said in Spanish, or things that are written in Spanish should be said in Spanish.
My next question for you is but earlier in your monologue, you talk about how you often wonder why you're in Ohio, and most specifically, Granville, Ohio. And I want to know,
Yeah.
do you have negative feelings towards this place? Or did you come to Ohio, did you come to Denison to try to find your new home? your almost say third home, since you don't really feel very at home in Boston because you can't really find your group there, and you don't really feel at home in Guatemala. Do you think here you'll find a group where you really feel like you belong?
Well, it has been hard, but the only reasons I struggle sometimes with Denison is I can't relate with other people as much as I thought maybe I was going to. But I did see Denison as a new opportunity for me to start, even though I was balancing these two different cultures out. I thought that maybe at Denison I'd be able to straighten them out, or maybe find a merger, since I feel like I knew that Denison would provide a different perspective of thinking and understanding. So by me coming to Denison, I was hoping that maybe finally I'd be able to understand why it's such a problem for me. I know it does sound a little strange, but I thought maybe just a new change of scenery, a new change of location, somewhere else. I thought maybe through education outside of my comfort zone would help me out.
Also, I'm wondering about what inspired you to talk about this in the first place. Obviously, you have some intense identity issues. I want to know more about your your relationship with your cousins and them teasing you. I want to know more about how this has impacted your life.
Yeah, but then again, I feel like everyone suffers identity issues at one point or another, whether it be about their ethnicity, whether it be about their race, whether it be about their culture. It could be about what they seek in life. It could be about certain things they like to do in life, and they don't know which way they want to go. But for me, it's more like I just feel like I have to choose one side almost. It's either I'm American or I'm Guatemalan. It's very hard to find the balance of both of them. And like I said, I would remember when I would go to Guatemala when I was younger. My cousins would always make fun of my accent and said I had a gringo accent to my Spanish, which at the time I didn't understand, but I guess I learned to understand as I grew up. My cousins felt like there's only one way to be Guatemalan, and it was to be the way they were. My accents and my behaviors and the way I dressed had to be exactly to their likings, or in order for me to even be considered Guatemalan. And of course, it did impact my life because as I was growing up, I always had to keep this in mind, no matter where I went, no matter who I talked to. It wouldn't go away. And I think it's because of that. It's what inspired me to talk about displacement of cultures and heritage. And I think it took a more mature Mario, a more grown up Mario, a more older Mario to start to understand the complexities of the situation. And I think when I was younger, I wasn't prepared. I didn't understand. Not saying that I understand now, but I feel like the whole concept is slowly making more sense to me. And it's just about how I want to represent myself.